Hello everyone, my name is Akankshu Nani, and welcome to my YouTube channel Neuro Chat with AG. On this channel, I plan to cover topics that are closest to my heart and support the neurodiverse community. Topics related to neurodiversity, autism spectrum disorder, and more. On the channel, I will interview thought leaders, esteemed researchers, scientists, professors, doctors, and psychologists, seeking their views and updates on their latest work, research, etc. I will also chat with parents of neurodiverse kids and adults and talk about experiences of neurodiverse individuals. Miss Kamini Lakhani is a prominent figure in the field of autism support and advocacy. She is the founder of SAI Connections, Support Autistic Individuals, an organization dedicated to empowering individuals with autism and their families through comprehensive support services and educational programs. Ms. Lakhani is also a behavioral specialist and certified consultant in relationship developmental intervention, RDI. Being the mother of a child who is now a young adult on the spectrum, she understands the challenges encountered by other parents with children on the spectrum. With decades of experience, Ms. Lakhani is an advocate for autism awareness and empowerment. Her efforts consistently aim to empower autistic individuals to understand their potential and create opportunities for jobs for autistic adults. Ms. Lakhani, welcome and thank you very much for the time today.
Thank you so much, Akansh. It's so lovely to be here.
And to jump right into it, could you share your personal journey and how it led to your deep involvement in the autistic community?
Sure. So, this is taking me back like 35 years because my son Mohit is now 35. And when he was diagnosed at age 3, it was very, very difficult for me. For our entire family, my husband, me, and I already had a little daughter by that time as well. Um, for the entire family, actually, we were kind of, what is this? What is this diagnosis? We've never heard of it. And incidentally, just that same month, I remember there was an article in the Reader's Digest about autism. And I had read that. And when the doctor said autism, I said, no, it can't be because I read that article and my son is so different. How is that possible? So initially it was that period of grief. And then, they told me you've got to do special education and speech therapy and occupational therapy. And I did all of that for a year, but as a mother, I felt very unfulfilled. I felt that there's a lot more that I can do, that there's something that's missing and I need to figure what it is. So it was that kind of that void within, and we were living in South Korea at that time. So the closest place to us was the US. And so every 6 months, 8 months, we would travel to the US and try whatever the Western world had to offer. So of course, we used to do research back home, and those were the pre-internet days. So it was about ordering books, reading them, finding what's happening, and then traveling to the US. And of course, the first thing that I did was go to UCLA at the Lovas Clinic because that's where they taught about ABA. And so I got myself trained there. And, they taught me how to sit across a table and work with Mohit and teach him different language drills. And then I would learn from them, go back home. And then, those were also we didn't have YouTube. So it was those big fat VHS tapes that I had to record and send them. And then they would give me feedback on my work. So this sounds like another lifetime now, but I remember the struggle and, taking 2 kids there. And my husband was, he would really take care of everything and, make sure we were all comfortable. But those were early learning days. So I went into ABA and occupational therapy and sensory integration and, biomedical work, auditory integration training, literally everything, and even swimming with dolphins. So tried everything for Mohit, and I think that changed me as a person because I started feeling like, okay, now I've got a hang of it. I'm fully involved. I need not do what others tell me to do. But now I've educated myself enough, I've trained enough to understand how to take care of my own son. So those were the early days. And then, of course, moved to Dubai, became a BCABA, which is a board certified associate behavior analyst. Then I moved back to India, and that's when I started SAI, which was an ABA based center. And, by this time, Mohit was a teenager, and of course, I could see that um, he was getting shut down with all the language drills and, what's this, name this, find this, what questions, where questions, all of that that we were supposed to, work on. That was kind of shutting him down. And, you know, um, at that point, someone suggested RDI. So that's when I looked into it and I joined the program as as a parent. And I just changed my life because I realized there's so much more to autism than just teaching language and, working on behaviors, but it's that connection with the child which is so important. And it's a privilege. It's that back and forth that happens with a parent and child. If we can build it with our kids and adults on the spectrum, it would be a different world. So RDI changed my life. And so then I decided to become an RDI certified consultant. And then, the founders of RDI are Dr. Steve Gutstein and Dr. Rochelle Sheely, and they asked me to take over professional training in India and Dubai. So then I train other parents, other professionals who could be speech language pathologists, occupational therapists, special educators, doctors who want to become RDI certified consultants. So this is what I do. And of course, we had a full-fledged running center called SAI Connections, which catered just to parents whose kids were on the RDI program. Since COVID, we've become online, and in fact, our reach has grown much more because now it's the online world and we can connect with people all over the world. And this it's not been easy. The journey has not been easy, but I feel that when I connect with Mohit, the honesty that I see in him and other autistic individuals is unparalleled. In the sense that if they're having a meltdown, then they're fully there. If they're fully present in what they do, whatever they're exploring, whatever they're looking at, they're fully into it. So when I see Mohit painting and his artwork and stuff, he's fully engrossed when he's doing it. And I see this focus and attention and this honesty, in their lives, this large heartedness, which are all the good qualities they have. Of course, it comes with the other baggage of, sometimes having meltdowns and being aggressive and difficulty in connecting with others, right? But I just feel that I've changed as a person because of Mohit in my life. And initially, I started off with, well, why me? And now I'm like, why not me? I just feel blessed that he's in my life and he's taught me so much. So that's been my journey. I enjoy connecting with parents. It's my passion to work with others, basically, to train, to teach, to consult. And the person who's changed all of this is Mohit.
And to kind of ask more about your connection with Mohit, do you have any details or lessons that you might want to share with other parents about things you've learned?
Right. So, initially I was on this path of teaching him, to speak and, the language drills that we did and working on his behaviors. But I think when I came across RDI, Mohit was 17, and that's when I started. So for every parent out there, when they tell us that, okay, after age 7, things won't change, I don't believe in that at all because I believe that the brain is constantly changing. There is this principle of neuroplasticity, and our kids can continue to grow through life. So, for every parent who's struggling, there's hope. And it's not about the age at all. You can continue to build this back and forth relationship and this interaction with your child at any age. So that's very important to keep in mind. Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Your situation, obviously, being a parent of an autistic child, um, influenced your parenting style and approach. So, how do you think, like, to dive into specificities, how do you think that changed over the years? Like, from when Mohit was young to like then when you learned of RDI and as he got older.
Right. I think I became a lot more patient, lot, trying to understand and giving him time. So in RDI, we are taught this principle of the 45-second rule, which is that, give time, let them process. Earlier, I used to be a lot into, okay, if he doesn't get it in 2 seconds, I'm going to prompt him for the answer. But in the RDI approach, we kind of take a step back and we wait, and that waiting is it's miraculous because they start showing you how they're thinking. So I think as a parent I became a lot calmer and much more patient, and also the other principle is that we don't force and make them sit down and answer this. There's no force involved at all. In fact, what we believe in is setting an outer limit, which means that, I may be working with, and this I've seen so many with the adults that I work with, I may be cooking something with them and they say, I don't want to do it. And I'd be like, okay, but here's a chair, you can sit here, but you can't leave the kitchen. So, you become good at setting an outer limit where you're not forcing them, you're giving them their space and time and waiting for them to join you. And believe me, those kids would, sitting after a few seconds, they would get up and they would join me. And I didn't have to close the door or anything. So I think it taught me to believe in their capabilities, to really respect every human being, and also believing that co-regulation is more important than punishment. It's all about respecting them, connecting with them, and when that happens, then there is very little need of punishment or being coercive or forceful with our kids. So I think it's made me much more expansive, and this has permeated in all areas of my life as well.
Yeah, thank you. And in your experience, what are the most profound misconceptions about autism in India and the other regions you work with, and what needs to be done to dismantle these beliefs?
Right. So I feel one of the things, that we may look at, that parents normally look at is this, oh, my child is now older, we can't do anything. Uh, you know, uh, that's a misconception that I think everyone should give up. There is room for growth at any age, again, because of this principle of neuroplasticity. Like we've seen stroke patients recovering, right? In the sense that with the right rehabilitation. So people on the spectrum can continue to grow and continue to change and continue to have a very fulfilling life. Of course, there are difficulties. Of course, there are the co-occurring conditions. Our children could have like, they could be having some medical issues. There are people on the spectrum who may not speak, right? But that doesn't mean that they can't think. So we work on them, we work with them, we work on the foundations, and then we use augmentative communication, which gives them an expression to their thoughts. So I believe people on the spectrum are actually brilliant, Akansh. I I feel that the way they process and once they focus on stuff, they're like it's wonderful. So we've got to kind of let go of this belief that they can't do it, right? And Mohit today is an artist. He has shown his work all over the world, and it wouldn't have been if I didn't believe in his potential. Breaking this myth that everyone at every age at any age can learn. You know, my teacher, Dr. Steve Gutstein, he says if a 57-year-old came to me and said, a 57-year-old on the spectrum comes to me and says that, can you help me? I would say, yes, I can. So breaking that age myth and then breaking that myth of they can't learn, you know, I feel that we've got to find the way they learn. I totally believe in the theory of multiple intelligences where people learn in different ways. So we've got to find what ticks for them. You know, someone may be a visual learner, many of them are, others can learn by reading, writing. You know, there are others who learn by movement, and there are those who learn by typing. So we've got to figure out what is their learning style. Many of my adults, you know, they cook very well, they bake very well. So we've got to explore those different avenues of doing, different ways of doing things, and give them that respect, you know, so they can learn at any age, and in fact, they're brilliant. And things will get better. Things can get better.
That's an amazing sentiment to have. Could you highlight some of the key programs and services that SAI Connections offers for its individuals with autism and their families?
Right. So we offer one-on-one consultations through the RDI program. So besides me, we have three other RDI consultants at SAI Connections. Then I have an online coaching platform, which is called Empowered Autistic Individuals, where we train parents from all over the world using RDI principles in how they can become better guides for their children. And we also have RDI professional training happening through SAI Connections. We're the only people who are, you know, who are trainers. So for RDI professional training, of course, we can get it at RDI Connect in the US, but there are three or four other trainers in different parts of the world, and I'm one of them. So we offer professional training for professionals as well.
I have a question for you personally. So, what drew you to relationship development intervention, and why do you believe it's effective for individuals with autism?
Right. So you know, I think uh, it just takes me back to those days where I was really struggling. So after working on the ABA program for many years, I just felt that Mohit was becoming more and more shut down, and you know, there was aggression coming in and all of that. And of course, there were people besides me working with him, and all of us get this constant barrage of questions. What's this? Name this. What do you want to do? And lots of instructions, you know, and I could feel that he's shutting down. So that's when I was really looking for something. And that's when I heard about RDI. And like I said, I joined the program as a parent first, right? So I worked with this consultant called Joyce Albu. She used to, at that time, there were no certified RDI consultants in India. But Joyce flew down, she would fly down from the US to work with us. She would work with a few families all over India. And, you know, and just the first interaction with her, like, you know, I remember that she just started tossing a ball to Mo, you know, there were no instructions. Here's this 17-year-old standing across her, tall, well built, and she just starts tossing a ball to him without giving any instruction. And he just looked straight at her and he just straightened out. And I remember at that time, you know, his eyelashes caught the sunlight, you know, that was just coming in from the window. And I looked at him and I said, oh my gosh, my son has beautiful eyelashes. I forgot. I forgot about that. And he stood up and he interacted with her, and you know, they had this wonderful back and forth going. And that's when I was like, I'm all in with this. You know, this is going to change my life. And then through RDI, we learned about connection and, you know, really what is the important thing. It's not about the behavior, language, and social interaction. Of course, these are very important, but they're symptoms of what's actually going on, and we need to address the core. So that's when, this is what RDI taught me. And at this time, when I started at age 17, Mohit had become like really good at imitation and stuff. So, he would imitate everything. And there were moments when, suppose I would be sitting next to him and I would be doing this, I would look up and he would be doing this. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So I said this to Joyce, and she was like, let's set up something where he can't imitate. So this was a turning point actually. And what happened was that I gave him this, back of some old invitation cards that we had. And I gave him some paints and a brush, and I had my set as well. And I was like, I'm putting this barrier between us, and you can't see what I'm doing, and I can't see what you're doing, and go ahead and, do whatever you want with it. And I got engrossed in my painting. That's what art does, right? You start getting engrossed in it and you forget. And then I looked over after a while at his, and it was beautiful. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? I mean, mine looked very amateurish next to his. His was really beautiful. And that's when I realized that, oh my gosh, he has artistic abilities. So this was 18, around 18, and with no exposure to this kind of art before. So then we started his website, which is mohitlakhani.com. And, things just transformed for us, right? And our connection, this back and forth, his connection with me, with my husband, with my daughter, all of it improved. The interaction with outsiders also improved. And so I totally believe that, you know, when you're in the most tough situations, when I was in that toughest situation in my life, RDI came to my rescue and how. So I recommend it for every family. And I believe this connection is the crux of everything.
Those that's a very touching story. And I know you touched on this earlier, but how does RDI differ from other therapeutic approaches for autism? And what are its core principles?
Right. So what Dr. Gutstein says, and he shows this slide of an fMRI slide of a neurotypical brain and the brain of a person on the spectrum, where both were given the same kind of cognitive task. And the fMRI slide, the report showed that there's less neural connectivity in the brain of an autistic individual versus the neurotypical, right? So structurally, there is nothing, most of the time, there's nothing wrong with the brain of autistic individuals, but the way it's wired, it's different. It's connected differently. That's why we say differently wired brain, right? So neurodiversity is a principle based on that. And this leads to a lack of back and forth interaction between parent and child. So it's not the parent's fault, it's not the child's fault, it's just the way the brain is wired, right? So in the RDI program, we begin by getting the parents involved in doing many back and forth kind of activities. So the parent has a role, the child has a role. It's not just the parent instructing the child, but it's different things like, cooking together and doing lots of activities together with the aim of that connection. We call this guided participation relationship, or the guided relationship. This is just the way the parents and kids connect like this all over the world, everywhere, in every society, in every culture. But just because a child is autistic, it somehow that connection seems to go off. So we start by building that first. And we work on the core deficits of autism, which is just understanding your role in a situation, in self regulation, which is the ability to control self, in joint attention, in taking responsibility for an interaction, in being intrinsically motivated. So we work on the core areas, and the outcome of working on the core areas is improvement in behavior, improvement in speech and language, improvement in social interaction with others. So the RDI program focuses on working on the core, and these are the core deficits and guided participation.
RDI also emphasizes the importance of dynamic intelligence. So,
Right.
how do you
Right.
balance that with the need for structure and predictability, which many
Right.
individuals with autism often require?
That's such a lovely question. And I feel, the way we used to teach earlier was just sitting across a table and, getting kids to do stuff which was very static and like right and wrong answers, right? But what we do in RDI is focus on dynamic intelligence. So we make them think about situations, like in real life situations. So say you're baking something and then you run out of sugar. What is the child going to do, or the teenager or the adult? They may realize that, oh, there's a packet of sugar somewhere else, or I can use something else instead. This is dynamic. The world is dynamic, right? We constantly go through situations which are constantly changing, and we learn to deal with this. So this is how we need to get in there and let our kids think, give them time to think, give them difficulties that they have to surmount so that the brain becomes adaptable and flexible. So to survive in this world, we've got to be adaptable and flexible. So the RDI approach is to have our kids be more adaptable and flexible. At the same time, routine is important for all of us, right? So some kind of structure in the day, like this is what I feel, for Mohit, for all my students, like we have a broad kind of structure, but within that, they're able to take changes. Like, so you're supposed to go down, but suddenly it starts raining. Well, I can do something at home, right? We go to buy ice cream and the flavor that you want is not available. Many kids on the spectrum could have a huge kind of tantrum there, or, not be able to take it. But when we work on RDI, we're working on the rewiring of the brain, which leads to that dynamic intelligence. We do kind of balance it out. There is some structure, but at the same time, we want them to be adaptable and take life as it comes. So give some structure, give them some basic routines, but within that, also be able to take changes.
And given that progress can be highly individualized and, sometimes non-linear, how do you measure success or improvement in your work with RDI?
Right. So, we work on different objectives. We have the 5 categories of the core deficits of autism. So, to that extent, it's Dr. Gutstein has really made it pretty structured. But this, at the same time, what I tell families is, what is the change that you're seeing? The change is not on sitting across a table and working and acquiring, say, these many more new words, but the change is my child able to control himself better? Am I having, you know are we both more free? When I take him out, do I struggle less? So the proof is your real life situations where your child does better, is more regulated, is able to enjoy a better quality of life, right? So that when parents are at ease, when they know how to deal with their child, when the child is making progress, is able to take these different situations. So that's how, we look at it. So success is in real life. And we evaluate that and say, okay, 6 months ago to now, where are we today? A
Oh,
child who may not be interacting with so many people is now interacting with many more, is not as shy, then that's proof of progress. If a child can go to McDonald's, a youngster, a teenager, an adult, and go and order his own food, then that's your real life progress. That's how we evaluate it.
yeah, thank you for explaining that. What role do family dynamics play in the success of interventions like RDI? And how do you
Right?
manage situations where family beliefs or practices may conflict with therapeutic goals?
Right. So basically, I feel the mom and dad have to be on the same page. Like we have this principle of declarative language where we don't instruct our children or teenagers, adults as much. We use declarative language, which we share and it forces them to think. So I think everyone needs to be on the same page with that. So that's very important. Sometimes in India, we do have a lot of joint families, families living with in-laws. So that's sometimes that's a struggle because and this it comes from a good space. It comes from the heart where a grandparent may instruct the child to get them to do things faster. But I think everyone in the family needs to be educated, right? And also the the I'm sure you've heard of this, Akansh. There's the system of there's something else going on with the child, and we have to cure the child and all of that. I think we need to break through those beliefs. The elders in the family may say, let's take this child to so and so person who's going to cure him, and those that education needs to be in place because it's a differently wired brain, and autism is not an illness, right? It's the way the brain is wired. It's not a disease. So we need to get out of those kind of situations and educate, starting from families, getting spouses on board, and then the extended family, and then society at large.
I 100% agree. And one thing I was really curious about, and these are always, one of my favorite things to hear about. So could you please share a success story from SAI Connections that deeply impacted you?
Sure. So there are many, many success stories. And so, this is a difficult question. There are some of my students who are out there at college and doing really well for themselves. There are those who are at work doing well for themselves. Then we have this whole group of people uh, who are artists like Mohit. For him, it's his art. That's what he does. Then there are bakers, and then we have one student who I'm going to talk about, who we call the master chef. And this is a young man who's now 28. His name is Vishal Srinivas, and Vishal and his mom Viji were with me at SAI when I used to run the ABA program. And he was like a smart guy. Like he covered all the levels on the VB map very quickly. He moved ahead very soon, and we were like, this guy is really doing well. But after a couple of years, he started having these aggressive bouts, and it became so bad that this they live in the suburbs in Chembur at that time, and they had to travel to Santa Cruz, which was about like an hour away from there, literally. So, and they used public transport, and his mom used to teach. She was, trained by me, and she was a wonderful teacher at SAI, and she would have a rough time with him, and we never knew what would trigger him off. We had behavior plans written out for him and everything, and still like we weren't finding the way through, and we came down, we reduced our demands, we would just give him simple things to do, but at any point of time this person would go into a huge meltdown and hurt himself and others around him. And there was a point at this time I had already started, I'd become an RDI consultant. And I told Viji, the mother, I said, Viji, let's get him onto RDI. And she trusted me, she believed in me, and she got onto the program. And within 6 months, we started this regulation with him, and this guy calmed down, you know, and he went on to become this master chef. So today, Vishal comes up with these fantastic recipes and he creates them on his own. And of course, he has other issues. He has asthma, and some medical issues that he has, but from being totally again shut down and aggressive to becoming this master chef. And it's not that our kids will not have those other difficulties. Of course, they do have. They have some difficulties, and who doesn't? To navigate through on a day-to-day life. But really, it's like a before and after story with RDI and living these a good life, finding what your innate uh, potential is. This is what I've seen across the board. When you tap that, then the sky is the limit for our kids. And many, many younger kids also going into school and having like good school lives and doing well at school, and all of those. So the entire, I feel it's a success story with RDI.
How do you see the landscape of autism support changing in India? And what role does SAI Connections play in that transformation?
So I think in India we've come a long way, compared to where we were those 30 odd years ago when Mohit was diagnosed to now. Things have changed. There are many more people who understand and who are supportive. But I just believe that going to, the grassroots, going to where our children are, that's where we would really need to build systems. So, pre-COVID, I used to go out there and do these kind of 2-hour workshops. And one of the most fulfilling ones that I had was at a school here called Podar International, where the 11th and 12th graders attended. And they attended that 2-hour workshop, and I had them do stuff and then showed them videos. And you would think that children or teenagers of that age would not be interested, but they were wonderful. And later on, they came up to me and they said, we used to think this kid in our class is weird, but now we understand why. And I think we need to start that education at all levels, at grassroots levels, so that there's acceptance and understanding of our neurodiverse kids and acceptance in society. And I in the US, I know, many times, like where I've been there, and if I'm talking to a taxi driver, they might, uh, they would say, "What brings you here?" And I would say, "Well, I'm here for my son, and he's autistic." So they would say, "Oh yes, that's what are you doing to help him?" So I used to find that very encouraging. And I remember once we were in Paris, and uh, or it was the US, I think, where Mohit was in a mall, and he had a little meltdown there, and I saw people just busy, not, butting in, just they gave us our space, and in a few minutes he was all right. And I remember wishing at that time that I wish it was like this in India, because here what happens is in 2 minutes, a whole crowd of 50 people will kind of collect around you. So I think that getting people to understand what autism is and that they need their space, they need their time, but they're like also, understanding that these people have potential and they can make a difference in the world. That's where I would like to see India and every other country reaching, giving them an equal opportunity.
So what advice would you give to other parents and caregivers considering RDI for their autistic loved ones?
Right. I would definitely say it's the best way to go, and it can really, bring about huge changes because you're working at building connection, so that's the most important. And I would tell every parent, never give up. Never. You never know. I started RDI at age 17 and my life changed. So never give up. Believe in your child's potential, right? There is a lot going on in there, and our children are wonderful. And if a parent believes in a child's potential, then the sky is the limit. So never give up.
And in your experience, what does true inclusion of autistic individuals in society look like? And how far are we from achieving it?
I think we do have some way to go with that, because true inclusion would mean that, our workspaces are open to our kids coming in, giving them the time off if they need a break, understanding that, this is not intentional, and everyone needs their, they have different needs. So I know many adults who are out there in the workforce who are not able to maintain their jobs, right? And they they need they need to be understood. They need to be given their space, and we need to make places accessible for them. Allow them to use headphones if they need to. Those noise cancellation headsets, and focus on their strengths, because the kind of focus that they have, I was surprised to hear that the majority of people at NASA have autism, uh, you know, and so giving them the kind of jobs that they require, making spaces open for them, accepting them, not kind of staring at them when things go haywire and stuff, but real inclusivity with compassion.
Ms. Lakhani, I wanted to extend my heartfelt thanks for taking this time to share your experiences, insights, and wisdom in this interview. Your perspectives have provided us with a richer understanding of the complexities and nuances involved in autism support, especially within the context of India. The depth of your knowledge and the passion that I feel from you when you're talking about your work has left a lasting impression on me. Thank you once again for your generosity in sharing your time and expertise.
Thank you, Akansh. So beautiful to be here, and thank you for inviting me.